Alrighty, guys. So today we're going to be looking at, can we subtract polynomials? So the day before we looked at adding polynomials. So now we're going to be looking at subtracting polynomials. Okay, so just a little bit of review on our vocabulary, because remember, we have to have a way to describe our answers and our polynomials. Okay, there are so many different types of polynomials out there that we want to have a few ways to describe them. Okay, so we're classifying the given polynomial by a degree here. Okay, let's see if I can zoom back in. So to do that, we're going to be looking at the largest exponent. So anytime we classify by degree, we're looking at the largest exponent. Okay, that's the goal here. So I want you to go ahead and see how many of these that you can remember. If you want to get your notes out from yesterday, you can. Okay, but I want you to go ahead and see how many of these you can remember. Okay, and then you can check your work with mine when you're finished. All right, I hope you took some time to try and see how many of these you remember. So if I look at this, I've got negative 11x minus 4. This one, I can write in that exponent of a 1 right there. Anything that has the largest exponent of a 1, remember, that means linear. The next one, I have my largest exponent is a 4. So anytime our largest exponent is a 4, okay, we think of 4 quarters and a dollar. So that's going to be quartic. The next one, our largest exponent is a 2. Anytime our largest exponent is a 2, that's going to be quadratic. On the next one, it's our fourth row, and our number is 4. So anytime we just have a number, no variable, no exponents, anytime we just have the number, okay, that's going to be a constant. Okay, that's going to be constant. And then the last one, I've got 3x cubed. Okay, my largest exponent is a 3. If I say that out loud, it's 3x cubed. So this is going to be cubic. Okay, just remember, how would I actually say this out loud? And that kind of gives you the name of that polynomial. Alrighty, so these are something we're going to be practicing a lot. So if you're like, man, I'm getting them all mixed up right now, we're going to practice them a lot. So it should be getting easier. So I mentioned to a few of you yesterday that the correct mathematical way to write a polynomial is in standard form. And this is when the exponents, okay, so what this means is when the exponents go largest to smallest. Okay, so we're always going to make sure that we start with the largest exponent first and go smallest. That makes it easier to classify it by degree, and it makes it easier to work with too. Okay, so anytime I give you an answer or we're talking about writing our answers, you always want your exponents to go from largest to smallest. All right, so yesterday we talked about adding polynomials. Today we're going to talk about subtracting polynomials. Subtracting polynomials are very, very similar. They just have one little extra step that you have to do first. Okay, so I'm going to give you these 2 steps, and then I'm going to show you what they mean. So the first step is to distribute a negative 1. I'm going to show you what that means here in a second. So distribute a negative 1. Okay, and then step number 2 is then to combine like terms. So after we distribute, it turns into one of our problems from yesterday. All right, so looking at this, we're going to apply these 2 steps to our 2 first problems. Okay, so if we look at the first problem, we have x squared plus 3 minus 3x squared minus 5. Now remember, if you feel like I'm going too fast, just hit pause. Okay, go back. It's not a big deal. Okay, so looking at this one, whenever I look in between the parentheses, I have a minus sign, but there's nothing in front of this second set of parentheses right here. There's nothing there. So remember, what we always want to do is write in a negative 1, okay? Because we're going to distribute that negative 1 to everything in the parentheses. So I'm going to take that negative 1, I'm going to distribute it to the 3 and to the negative 5. This first parentheses doesn't change. Nothing changes about it. So I'm going to have x squared plus 3. On the second one, though, negative 1 times 3 gives me negative 3x squared. And then negative 1 times a negative 5 gives me plus 5. Okay, because a negative times a negative makes it a plus. Okay. Now, once I've distributed my parentheses, now I can just combine like terms like I did yesterday. Okay, so I'm just going to square or box in my x squareds. And then I'm going to underline my numbers. Remember, it doesn't matter what shape you use, just as long as you're doing all your x squareds in squares, or all of your numbers in circles, or whatever it might be. So now I'm going to simplify. X squared minus 3x squared, well, that's like 1 minus 3 gives me negative 2x squared. 3 plus 5 gives me plus 8. That's my final answer. So we distributed the negative 1, and then we combined our like terms. All right, let's go and look at the next one. We have 4x cubed plus 3x squared plus 2 minus 5x cubed minus x squared. So if we look at our steps, the very first thing we have to do is distribute a negative 1. So I'm going to look at my parentheses. There's nothing in front of that one, so it doesn't change, okay? That first set does not change. This one, though, has that negative in front. So we're going to write in a negative 1 and distribute that negative 1. And we distribute it to everything. So like I said, the first one doesn't change. So I have 4x cubed plus 3x squared plus 2. Negative 1 times 5 gives me minus 5x cubed. Negative 1 times negative x squared gives me plus x squared, because that negative and a negative make it a plus. Now from there, this is when we can do what we did yesterday. So I'm going to put triangles around my x cubes. I'm going to box in my x squareds. My 2 is a lonely 2, so I'm just going to underline it. Okay, so now I look at all my shapes and I can combine my like terms. So 4x cubed minus 5x cubed gives me negative 1x cubed. 3x squared plus an x squared gives me plus 4x squared. And I just have a standalone 2, so plus 2. And that's my final answer. So after we distribute that negative 1, it turns into a normal problem. All right. Last one on this page. Oh, we forgot to classify, silly Mrs. Mariani. Okay, so if we look at this classification, okay, for this one, my largest exponent is a 2. Since my largest exponent is a 2, this one's going to be quadratic. All right, anytime the largest exponent is a 2, quadratic. Now the next one, the largest exponent is a 3. And if I read that out loud, I have negative 1x cubed. Since I said x cubed, guess what? This is going to be cubic. Okay, so remember how you say it really can help you find your largest, or find how you classify it. All right, so now looking at the last one on this page, it says calculate the difference between 2x cubed minus 4x squared plus x and 7x squared minus 5x. So to set this one up, we're looking for the difference. Okay, so since we're looking for the difference, that means we're going to subtract. So we're going to have 2x cubed, minus 4x squared plus x. Okay, and then minus, and you have to put these in parentheses, guys, minus 7x squared minus 5x. This has to be in parentheses because we're going to have to distribute our negative to everything on the inside. So you have to use parentheses. If you don't use a parentheses, you're probably not going to get the problem right. Okay, if I'm just going to be really honest, you have to use your parentheses. Okay, so don't get in the habit of not doing that. So now that we have this set up, now that it looks just like our problems up here, okay, we're going to write in our negative 1. And then this first one doesn't have anything in front, so it stays the same, but we have to distribute our negative to everything in the second set of parentheses. Okay, so I'll have 2x cubed minus 4x squared plus x. Negative 1 times 7 gives me minus 7x squared. And then negative 1 times negative 5 gives me plus 5x. Okay, so we've distributed that negative. now it just turns into our problems from yesterday where we can combine like terms. So I'm going to put triangles around my x cubeds. Oh, I only got one. I'm going to box in my x squareds. And then I'm going to underline my just standalone x's. So the 2x cubed just goes up front. -4 minus 7 gives me -11 x squared. And x plus 5 gives me plus 6x. Now, from here, that's my final answer, but I need to classify it. Since I have 2x cubed at the front, that's my largest exponent, and so it's going to be cubic. Alrighty, flip over to the back. Next page. Moving on to the next page. Okay, so looking at that one, maybe if I can get to the next page. Maybe, where to go? There we go. All right, so looking at our next page we got here, okay? It says the total perimeter of the triangle is 27. Find the length of the missing side. Okay, so this is one of those like we did yesterday in the warm-up where we want to find the length of that side that we're missing. So to do that, remember from yesterday, we started by doing 7 plus 9. So 7 plus 9 gave us 16. Okay, so that was our first step. 7 plus 9 equals 16. Our second step, so what we did next, okay, was we did our total, so 27 minus what we got here when we added our two sides together. So minus 16. When we did that, 27 minus 16 is going to give me 11. So I know that my missing side over here is going to be 11. Okay? So that's how, remember, we did that problem yesterday in the warm-up. Now, we had a lot of different methods. This one's by far my favorite. If you're really, really wanting to do a different method, let me know. And I can help you look through a different, or try the problem in a different method. Now, we do still need to classify it. We got a standalone number. We only got 11. So since we only got 11, okay, there's no variable, no exponents. That's going to be a constant. All right, so now looking at number 2. It says the total perimeter of the triangle is 23x. Find the missing side. So our very first step that we did up here was add the two sides together. So guess what? Even though we have a variable now, we're still going to add the two sides together. So step number 1 is going to be to add the 5x and the 7x. All right, so we're adding 5x and 7x together. That's step 1. When I do that, 5x plus 7x gives me 12x. So just like we did up here, that was our first step. Our second step now just like we did up here was to take our total, was 27. Our total down here is 23x. And we're going to do 23x minus 12x. So when we do that, 23x minus 12x will give me 11x. So that's going to be my extra side over here. Now notice it's the same exact steps when we had numbers versus when we had a variable now. Okay, so don't get tripped up on some of the words. It's the same exact steps. Okay, now we can still classify this. 11x has an exponent of a 1, so we can call this linear. All right, you will see one like number 2 in your homework today. So maybe keep your notes, don't throw them away so you can get help on that homework problem. All right, last one, because we're going to just pick one of these. We're going to have to do both of them. I want to pick number 4. We're going to do number 4 today. So looking at this one, it says simplify the following. We have 9x plus 3x cubed minus 7x squared plus 3x cubed plus negative 10x plus 5x squared. So for this problem, notice I have a subtraction sign and an addition sign. Okay, so with this, we have to know which one do we distribute the -1 to and which one do we not. So let me switch colors here. Okay, so this one right here is where we're going to write in our -1. If I write in a 1 here and I distribute a +1, that does not change anything. So we're not going to bother doing that. But we are going to distribute a -1 to this set of parentheses. You only distribute to the parentheses it's attached with. You don't distribute to all of them. So this first set of parentheses stays the same. I have 9x plus 3x cubed. -1 times 7 gives me minus 7x squared. -1 times 3 gives me minus 3x cubed. This set has a plus in front of it, so therefore we don't change it either. So I just have a minus 10x plus 5x squared. Now at this point, I've distributed my negative, okay? Now I can just combine like terms like I have been this whole time, okay? So I'm going to put triangles around my x cubes. I'm going to box in my x squareds. And I'm just going to underline my x's. So looking at my x cubes first, because you always start with your largest exponent. 3x cubed minus 3x cubed, those right there cancel each other out. Okay, those go away. They're gone because 3 minus 3 gives me 0. Okay, so you don't have any more x cubes, which is fine. You just have one less thing to worry about. Then I look at my squares. So -7 plus 5 gives me -2x squared. And then 9 minus 10 gives me -1x. So that's going to be my final answer. If I were to classify that, my largest exponent is a 2, so that's going to be quadratic. All right. If you have any questions on that, please let me know. If not, you can move on to your assignment.